Alright, first I'm gonna check if you guys can see stuff. But it seems you should be able to. Alright. So, as usual, we're gonna go through his entire move list together while my knowledge about this character is still fresh. So we're gonna do right that. Gonna come to right that. Alright. So first we've got his 10 frame Punisher, 1-2. +5 on hit. You could go for a countered combo starter, which is down for 2. It's his main countered, basically. Or you can go from that into handstand and mix your opponent from there. Handstand we're gonna cover a bit later on what your best options are and stuff like that though. Then we've got 1-4. With this there's a little mix-up. You can either do 1-2-4-4. So opponents who try to interrupt you or jab you out of the air are going to eat the last hit here, resulting in a hard knockdown. Or you can do 1-2-4-3, which either gives you this as a little mini combo or this. Sometimes it connects, sometimes it doesn't. The second combo is a bit finicky. There's also a third version. Looks something like this. For guaranteed damage. Then we've got 1-3 and 1-3 down into Negativa. The one into down Negativa is pretty risky. Basically, everything that goes into Negativa is pretty risky. You basically need a read on your opponent if he is gonna expect that you go into Negativa stance or not. Because if he is, you're gonna get punished with a shoulder, for example, every time, or with a hit that hits grounded, so you need to be careful. 1-3 you can do a bit more often though, because as you can see, even while you're minus, there's some distance between you. You push your opponent, you push yourself back from the opponent. And from there you basically let him come to you and either punish accordingly or mix him up accordingly, depending on how close your opponent gets towards you. 3-4, pretty good string, -4 on block. If you have execution for it, you can go for backdashing. Also, by the way, basically never try to sidestep with Eddy or sidewalk, because as you can see, if I sidewalk, for example, as you can see, it's very slow. It basically looks like he's floating above the ground, right? The sidestep is more noticeable, but it's a very small sidestep. A lot of stuff is still gonna hit you. 3-4 is also a countered combo starter. Yeah, slippery kick is the low combo starter out of neutral. You probably see Eddy players doing the most. It's one of the riskiest moves he has, though it's pretty seeable once you get used to the animation. Yeah, it's 30 frames. You can go from that into handstand as well, if you want to mix your combos a bit. Oops. But as you can see, he has a lot of trouble connecting some of his stuff. So it can be quite risky to do something different than usual. Also, the timing is shit on that combo and the damage as well. And even though that was supposed to hit the string, because it is the most consistent, it somehow managed to whiff as well, so yeah. Then we've got this one. This one we basically use to bait our opponent in if they think, alright, he's going to do that little low launcher. We're gonna do this and try to catch them with a Heron Bago there. The second of that one, basically. Because that's a launch as well. For some decent damage. Yeah. Then we've got this one. It's basically the low extension. Leaves us at +10 as well, and we remain standing. So we can go for additional pressure, out of stance for example, or try to retreat into stance, or just normal neutral pressure. This one with front stinger is a bit special, because front stinger, from that you can go either into negativa or handstands. So, like that. The thing about this move as well, on counter hit, it's a counter hit launch. Right? You can even pick up from negativa sometimes. But as you can see, Eddy has some hitbox issues, and that's why not everything's gonna connect. Out of handstand you can't actually convert that combo, only from negativa. Then we've got Satellite Moon. And Satellite Moon on its own is pretty shitty. It's basically to bait our opponent into whiffing a close range move. But people who know Eddy are just gonna go running after you and launch you for it. Heihachi, for example, with his electric. Or Mishimas in general with the electric. So that's gonna suck. But to kinda stop them from doing that, we've got two options, right? We've got the option that finishes with 4, which is the safer one. And we've got the one with 3, which is a bit unsafer. Also, the hot plate special on counter hit knocks down, right? A special thing about this move is you have different ways of cancelling it. For example, I can let it hit and then convert it into handstand and do a mid-launch immediately after. Looks something like this, right? So if your opponent tried to crouch or press anything after, because he thought, alright, he's gonna stay in negativa to mix me up, he's gonna eat the launch. So you basically use that. So hot plate special, there are different commands for it. What I am doing right now is sidestep 3. And after it connects, back 3 plus 4. And if your opponent tries to interrupt you somewhere along the line, he's gonna eat the launch. When you manage to finally make your opponent fear that launch, you just do the hot plate special on its own. Or, if you want to fuck even more with your opponent, you can do the hot plate special and cancel before the first hit even connects. So you go into Negativa immediately. Yeah, then we've got hand slaps. That's one of his 12 frame punishers. This one is for pure frame advantage if you want to remain in his normal neutral stance, right? The other one would be 4-2-3, which leaves you in handstand stance to mix your opponent from there. Then we've got a 12 frame counted, basically. Also, the low at the end is guaranteed. So that's 85 damage from a single counted, a 12 frame counted. So that's pretty strong. Then we've got the backhand handspring. This one right here, you only get a small additional hit, either with down forward 4 or while standing 3. As you can see in the command history, I'm doing quarter circle forward 3 to immediately do his while standing 3 basically. Very important, we're gonna need that later down the line as well. Also, you can cancel that flip into another mid, right? And while it says that it's 12 frames, that's not true. Because the first move already is 36 to 40 frames. And we're cancelling that into another move that's 12 to 14 frames. Hi there. Alright. Then we've got forward 2-1-4. On counter hit it becomes a natural string, right? Decent damage as well. However, if this gets blocked, you're minus 14. Some characters will be able to launch you for that, so watch it. 4-2-3 is his 12 frame punisher into handstand stance we are talking about. More to that later down the line. 4-3. 4-3 is one of his better strings to get into handstand. If you remember, we got 1-3, where we are at minus 10, but because of a pushback, we basically try to bait our opponent into coming closer towards our range, right? While with this one, we stay close and we're minus 1, meaning we can go for shenanigans. For example, we can go for down 3 plus 4. That one will crush most highs and sometimes evade even mids. If you want to reliably evade mids, you go for his handstand and then tap up or down, depending on which side you want to dodge towards to, right? And if you follow that up with 3 or 4, you're gonna do that low sweep at the end. You can tap up and down repeatedly as well, but you can't tap up twice in the same direction, right? Or you can just tap up, wait for the animation to finish, basically hope your opponent whiffed something that has a lot of recovery and then launch punish. Forward 4. Forward 4 is one of those moves you probably see a lot just because of that extension. Because nearly every single Eddy does that. It looks fun to me. It's nice to troll people that way. Alright. Even better, when the other handstand with forward 3, which is -1, we got this one that's +1. The difference, however, the one with forward 3 is a bit slower. No, a bit faster. While the other one that gives you plus is a bit slower. That way. Until now, if I'm gonna play Eddy against you, I'm gonna use that. Alright, then for opponents who know, alright, he's gonna convert into handstand stance. You're going to catch them with that string. If the second hit connects on counter hit, the follow-up is guaranteed. Get a guaranteed down forward 4 as well. Yeah, that was the main thing Eddy players do. Very obvious. I would not recommend doing that, except maybe if you made your opponent fear the conversion into handstand stance. But most opponents don't have a clue what Eddy is doing anyways, so sometimes it's free reign and let's commence the bullshit basically. Forward 3+4 is your main answer against opponents who love to stay on the ground, who think you don't really have any good grounded hits. Down forward 1. So there's two ways to go about this, right? We've got down forward 1-1, which is your basic mid-high string, right? Leaves you at +8, you're basically left free to pressure however you see fit. You could, for example, on hit, do forward 2-3 and your opponent wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Or 1-3 or 1-3 down, right? Stuff like that. Or if you're feeling a bit riskier and feel like your opponent won't jab immediately, you can go for forward 3, because that's exactly 18 frames and you're +8. So at worst you're gonna eat a jab. Also, if you know that you can get a reliable punish on your opponent and you don't want to take that gamble to punish your opponent first and then somehow manage to get into stance, you can punish with down forward 1, hold forward and immediately go into headstand stance. If your opponent is trying to press something, the helicopter move I'm doing right here, right, is 12 frames. So you're gonna trade a jab against the helicopter move, so most of the time you're gonna stay safe. If your opponent ate that at least once, he won't try to challenge it again. 4 other options you could do. Eddy has a lot of options. You could go for the crush again, you can go for the side dance shenanigans, you can go for back 3 out of headstand stance, which on counter hit will give you some guaranteed stuff as well. That mini combo basically. Alright, those were 3. What was... 4 was power crush into guaranteed while standing 3 or down forward 4. Depending on what you want to do basically, right? And as soon as your opponent respects the stance, then you're basically free to mix however you want, right? Alright. Down forward 2. I remember there being something guaranteed, but I can't really tell you what it was. I think it was actually the while standing 3, but getting the timing there is very difficult. There, I got it once, as you can see. Sometimes you even get a launch for some reason. I don't know why that is. There's a similar situation with Lee, where after an acid rain, a successful acid rain, you get the blazing kicks for free, even if your opponent tries to block. It's a bit weird. So down forward 2 is his main counter hit, 15 frames as well. So whenever you're plus and you want to remain neutral, and you know your opponent is gonna press, you go for the counter hit, right? I think this one does around 70 damage as well. Yeah, 72 damage. The last hit, the low, is guaranteed. Your opponent won't be able to escape that. Also, if you want to go for style, you can do something like this. Oops. But the styler combo is not as consistent as the normal one, so you need to be careful there. Alright, so down forward 3 basically got the same properties as 1-3, right? This one you use if you want to gain some distance between yourself and your opponent, to bait them into coming closer and then punishing them. You can also use this one to go into Negativa, so styling is the way, it truly is, yes. When you noticed that your opponent got familiar with that move going into headstand and you notice him rushing towards you because he wants to whiff punish you, then you go for Negativa and mix him from there. So, down forward 4 is a small low poke you have. It's high risk, low reward roll. On counter hit you get a guaranteed forward 3+4 or a quarter circle forward 3 if you feel like it. God damn it. I can't do it at the moment, but it's guaranteed. Or another down forward 4. Also, because it's -1 and it pushes back your opponent, it's a great way to immediately backdash after and then go for a launch, for example. Or you could go for down back 1+2, which is a pretty cheesy launch, as you can see, which is safe even. So back sway launch, that's mid and safe. Down forward 3+4 is actually his version of a 15 frame launcher. I think it might even be the only 15 frame launcher he has from neutral stance. So, down 2-3. Down 2-3 is going to be one of your main ways to either finish combos or to go into Negativa stance. When you noticed, alright, my opponent doesn't have a good way of dealing with Negativa stance, like he has no shoulder or his grounded hits take too long, then you can go for this into Negativa and try to interrupt him with stuff, right? Negativa force, the fastest option you've got, basically. Yeah. Then we've got down 3-3. This one you're not really gonna use. Basically, the idea behind that, if you have an opponent that's able to react to a down 3, which seems bullshit in my eyes because it's 16-17 frames fast, so he would need a read. You can cancel the first hit to go into that big mid launch, right? That's the idea behind that. it's pretty useless, however. This one, however, this one is quite good. Really good for pressuring your opponent, leaves you at +3, right? You remain standing, you can buffer throws as well, like his rodeo grab. So this one's a really great move. Down 4-3. This is going to be one of those kind of mind games where you don't really have any advantage. So, on counter hit, the full thing is guaranteed, but on hit you're minus, so it's actually your turn to defend. It's a bit... you need to get used to that. Like, when I started with Eddy, I got launched a lot because I thought it was still my turn and my claps, my cheeks got clapped. However, if you only go for the first one, right, then it's turn for your while standing mix-up, consisting out of full crouch, down forward 4 to go into Negativa on plus and mix your opponent from there. Or full, I think it was, yeah, while standing, if you remember that one. From this one we can stay in Negativa, or we can go into headstand. What else was there? While standing 1-4 if we want to stay safe, and while standing 1-3 if we think our opponent is gonna try and duck the second hit. Yeah, as you can see, it sometimes whiffs. It's very timing specific. Basically, Negativa 4 you need to hit it late as possible and then immediately go for up 4-3. A bit tricky, but you will get used to it. Alright, then we got down back 2-3. It's one of his more cheeky countered launchers, basically. If this connects, your opponent is gonna eat a lot of damage. Oops. $91 damage from one single countered string. So that's fair, I guess. The string itself starts with an 18 frame move. You best use it, for example, after you got a confirmed visual on hitting down forward 1-1, because this one leaves you at +8. Or if you hit your opponent in some other way, where you know you're plus, but your opponent tries to challenge you by jabbing or utilizing any high at all, right? There are some other ways of baiting highs from your opponent. For example, his up 3+4 is neutral and block, right? Most opponents will think, alright, his turn is done, I guess I can pressure now, I can do stuff. That would be one way to apply that countered string. If you think he's going for any kind of jab string, or when you know, alright, my opponent has a character that relies a lot on those strings, right? Down back 3. So we have multiple strings we have to go through. I'm gonna explain each and every one of them. So down back 3 on its own is just minus. The idea behind that, why you would only do the first one and nothing else, is to stay in crouch and go for full crouch mix-up, as I've explained earlier. Another option would be to immediately go into headstand. That one's a bit risky, however, because your opponent can float you out of there with a mid and sometimes even with highs. To counteract that, if you have a read on your opponent and you know he's gonna try and interrupt you, you're either gonna go for headstand down 3+4 to completely crush highs, or go for sidestep 3 or sidestep 4, right? Then we've got this one. It's basically to make your opponent eat a pretty hefty counter hit to make him respect the mix-up, basically, right? However, this one you only use when you know that your opponent is gonna duck the high on this one, right? Or when you know he's got a read and he's gonna duck both of this. Like he's going to block the low and evade the high and then punish you for it. If your opponent doesn't do that, never use this one. Never use this string, because it's launch punishable. As you can see, that whole dancing around after the second hit he does, that's how long it takes him to recover, so your opponent can take his sweet time to punish your ass. The hot plate special is going to be one of our main things here. Yeah, so on counter hit it's a hard knockdown, but that's not too interesting for us. What's interesting to us, however, is that we can either cancel the first hit by holding down to further mess with our opponent, or we let the hit play out and then convert it into headstand to then immediately do a launcher. Looks something like this. Right? So when your opponent knows, alright, he's gonna do that move and then he's gonna stay in negativa, you're gonna eat the launch. Respect the mix-up. This one right here on hit is guaranteed. If the second connects on counter hit, which is very hard to do because he goes off axis on his own with all his dancing around and stuff. And for some reason, if you just take one step to the right and then go for it and it connects, you won't get the counter for some reason. I don't know why that is. Eddy has a lot of weird stuff that way. Alright, then another option we have is we stay low. We get +9 and we will recover and crouch. So we can go for while standing 1-3, while standing 1-4, while standing 2, stuff like that. Basically whatever we want to do. This one got an extension though with a kind of fake mix-up, right? If we know that our opponent is waiting for the second low to low parry that because it's very reactable, we cancel the second low to go into that launch right here. So it's a mix-up between low and low into mid, which launches. Then we've got the triple low. If you can hit that, congrats, you've just won the game, or your opponent doesn't know Eddy at all, right? You recover in standing. From there you can use moves that you normally wouldn't be able to land against your opponent on hit, right? Like forward 3, for example. Because we're +10 and forward 3 is 18 frames, we are still below 10 frames, our opponent wouldn't be able to interrupt us with any kind of jab strings. So going for forward 3 in that situation, mid-checking our opponent and going into headstand stance is one of the better things we can do. Because if we hit, we can immediately apply mix-up or poking pressure. And if we don't hit him, we go for crushing shenanigans or dance around a bit, right? Then we've got this one. This one you basically only use when you know that your opponent figured out the mini mind game between the low-low and the low-mid, where the mid comes pretty delayed, right? If you got an opponent who mastered fuzzy guarding, you use that string on them. Because this one is faster, and if your opponent tried to fuzzy guard, you're still gonna hit them with a needle impact. Yeah. Then we've got this one. This is just to annoy your opponent basically, but on block it's launch punishable. I wouldn't overdo it. However, there's a different version to it, where you go into headstand on -10, which sounds pretty bad, right? But if you manage to land a hit, you're actually +1. That doesn't give you enough time to actually apply pressure, but you could still go for crushing shenanigans or dancing around. Or go for moves where you immediately do a low and crush every high, right? Down back 1+2. Down back 1+2 is one of his backsway moves where he takes a step back. It's a safe mid-launch as well for huge amounts of damage. God damn it. So 69 damage for a safe mid-launch where you can evade some strings of your opponent and punish him for it is pretty darn strong. Good move. And if you are in a situation where you're between 0 and -4 and you're not confident in your backdashing abilities, you can just go for this. It will do the job for you. Then we've got this little string here. Completely safe. I think on counter hit, yeah, on counter hit everything is guaranteed. For some reason you get that counter hit, stun, animation, whatever, right? But I haven't found any way to actually pick up for now. I need to check that out later. Alright, so this is one of the better ways to go into headstand stance, right? It's basically the same as forward 4 back into stance, which leaves you at +1 as well. So here the same rules apply, with going for movement, going for crushing maneuvers, going for the dancing stuff, going for lows that crush highs. We got some additional options here though, and that's why we are covering the string. It's shown later. Alright, so basically what you additionally get is you can go for an additional 3 to kind of mid-check your opponent. So if the second hit connects and countered, the last is gonna connect and the last hit is gonna connect as well. You won't have any real advantage, however, or let's say it differently. You have a slight advantage, but it comes down to a mind game again. Because you force your opponent into crouch, his fastest option will be a wild standing 4. When you know that he's going for a wild standing 4, You can harass him with jab strings and can interrupt him using his wild standing 4. If he waits it out or does something different, right, you're gonna lose your turn. Or if Heihachi, for example, decided to do his wild standing 2, then you're pretty much fucked as well. So you need to be careful of that hits. I would suggest to play it safe and go back to the defensive just to see what your opponent does and then act accordingly. Back to 3-3. Out of the neutral, you're never really gonna use that. It's your wall ender basically. Should the second connect on counter hit, however, the third hit is guaranteed as well. Yeah. Back to 4. This one is your main 14 frame punish, if we're going for straight damage. It's one of your main screw moves as well. Here, for example, that's where I'm using it. The last string I did, that's where I utilized it. Alright, now we're coming to those 3 moves, basically. Back 3 on its own is alright, it's nothing special. It's a different 13 frame move, basically. So if you noticed your opponent is ducking your mid-high, you're down forward 1-1, but you notice him eating the mid every time, you just go for the single knee to collect the frame advantage, so you don't need to rely on the high to get the +8. That's the only use for that move, basically. It has okay-ish range, right? It's basically the same as down forward 1. There's not a huge difference there. Back 3-3, however, out of neutral, you are never gonna use that one. You're gonna get punished for that each and every single time you use that in neutral, so don't. This one you're only using inside combos, right? There isn't really any different use for it. Then, for some reason, I don't know what the idea behind that was, they gave them a fast version, so if your opponent tried to interrupt you in between that, you can get them with that. It's pretty shit, however, because -14. Some characters will be able to launch punish you for that. So I would not recommend using that one. Alright, back 4 on its own, completely safe. On hit, +5. If you're off axis, for some reason it's knockdown. Eddy's moves are weird like that. And now we come to some different mix-ups here again. So we've got back 4-3, right? Here we can remain in crouch to apply full crouch mix-up again. Or we can just repeatedly do the same string over and over again to annoy our opponents. So if I just hold back and do those 2 moves over and over again, I can chain them together. And it's basically the same situation as with down back 3-4, right? So I can cancel into the hot plate special as well. And then cancel into Negativa to mix our opponent, or I can let the hit play out and then go into headstand for an immediate launch. You can go into headstand from there as well, at -13 though, so before you try to do stuff like that, you need to have pressured your opponent mentally, so he doesn't try to interrupt you, right? When we've got back 4-4, that's basically the mid check. It's completely safe as well. And I think there was, yes, with 3+4 you get some additional guaranteed hits. If a second connects, you get the 3+4 at the end guaranteed as well. If your opponent expects the last flip, right, he can jab you out of the air for float combo. To counteract that, we go into Negativa, make him whiff and punish him for trying that. Yeah, this one we already covered. Yeah, this one has an auto sidestep coming with it, right? Also, you get a guaranteed forward 3 if they try to stand up immediately, which is a wall bounce. We're gonna say some additional stuff for that later down the line though. That's his Power Crush. It's one of the worst ones in the game. While it gives you plus, it takes an eternity to come out, and most of your opponents will do their string, will have successfully finished their string, and will still be able to go back into blocking, and then this connects on block. So yeah, pretty bad. Okay, up 3. This one's pretty risky to use, because it's launch punishable attack. On open ground, you can use that if you want. If there is a wall close by, don't, because your opponent is going to have a very easy time to launch you for it. Also, I remember in some combos, god damn it, it was like a guaranteed last hit. It was in one of those mini combos, I can't remember which one it was, but it exists. So, up 4, the only option you've got here basically is the low. If you remember, we had 1, 2, 4, 4, where we've got the high version as well. Here we don't have that option. Wait. Or we do. I was too slow, I guess. Alright, I was talking bullshit then. But additionally to the flip itself, if you don't want to go for those linear kind of things, you can stay in crouch and then mix your opponent from there, because he's still waiting for the last hit, and you just mix him for that, because he got too patient. Also, if the low connects, sometimes you can get a small combo from that. It's very finicky though, it won't work all the time. What you can do, however, is that. So what I'm doing is I do up 4, 3, 1, 4, 4, 3+4. All guaranteed as well. If that's too tricky for you, you can just go for Negativa 3-4. The 3-4 needs to come pretty quickly. Alright, what else do we have? Fire Kick. We were talking about that one a bit earlier. At very close range it leaves you at neutral, at max range it leaves you at +1. If your opponent isn't familiar with that move and tries to jab out of panic, you can interrupt him with your jab string into stance beforehand. Or you can go for down back 2-3 to fish for a counter hit. Let's see. You can go from fire kick to negativa as well. This one's a very risky gamble though, because recovery takes a shit-ass long time. Also, you need to heavily rely on your opponent wanting to use heist in that kind of situation. Just going for fire kick and then doing something else is the better option here. Going into negativa from this is very risky. I wouldn't recommend doing that one. Jumping jacks. Alright, with this one you've got a three-way mix-up basically. You either do, or might even be a four-way mix-up. Hang on. Alright, yeah. So you either do up forward 3-3, which is against opponents that love to crouch a lot. Or you go for mid-low, that will give you the guaranteed negativa 3-4. If I wouldn't fuck it up, that is. There we go. Or you just go for the first hit. Your opponent is expecting a second hit to come out, but you're just gonna mix him from neutral. And the last option would be to go into negativa and mix him from there. Either with small stuff to go into different stances, or to immediately go for launch if you're feeling a bit more risky. Up forward 4 is one of his homing moves. It has okayish range, right? You can use that as a keep out tool. It's quite slow though, so be careful. Up forward 1+2 is one of those meme moves. There's basically only one use for it, and that is to end up back-turned against your opponent. So you can get the back-turned 3+4 for launch. I remember it being very plus as well, so we can check that out real quick. Damn it! Alright, let's do it a bit different then. Alright, that should suffice. +1, alright. So maybe not very plus, but plus enough to do some stuff. Does pretty good damage as well. Up forward 3+4 is a safe mid-check you can do for pure damage if you feel like it. Well, relatively safe, you won't get launched for it, but worst case scenario you're gonna eat a 1-1-2 from a Mishima player. Then we've got forward 4-2-3. So if the low connects uncountered, you get a guaranteed forward 3+4. Or a down forward 4. You need to do a micro dash level. And sometimes it whiffs for no apparent reason. There we go. Or you can go for while standing 3. While standing 3 and forward 3+4 being the easier options, I would say. Alright, then we've got forward 3. Now we're coming to all the different wall bound shenanigans we have. We can go into negativa from that. We can go into the headstand stance from that. On block, because of a huge pushback, we're relatively safe, because our opponents won't pick the right options to punish us the most of the time. Because if they try to rush after us to punish our headstand stance, we're going for Negativa instead. We wait for them to move and punish them for it. And if we're expecting the Negativa stance and want to punish that with a shoulder, for example, or stuff like that, we go for the headstead stance instead, roll a bit closer with forward 1+2, and then mix them from there. Also, if we expect our opponent to immediately rush after us when we're going for the headstand, we can go for this, which is an immediate launch. So we're basically punishing our opponent for having a hard read on us, which will lower his fighting spirit even more. Forward, forward, forward. Forward, forward, 4 is your long range with punish, basically. There are some styler combos you can do from there. They won't always connect though. You can play it safe, however. It's less damage, but it's still alright. $70 damage isn't too bad, I would say. Also on block -7. There's quite some range between us here, right? So we are waiting for our opponent to whiff stuff and either punish him for it, with helicopter spin for example, or we're immediately going for mix-up stuff into countered game. Or what we can do as well is that we start dancing around to make him whiff stuff. That's just unblockable. It's one of the slower ones in the game. 76 frames, so yeah. If you manage to hit that one, congrats, you won the game. Just Dance Tekken Edition, yes. Then we've got his running 3. Similar to Instant Shining Wizard, you can do an instant running 3 to immediately go for the slide. It's launch punishable though. Your opponent can get a float combo from this, either with while standing 4, or if your character was playing last, for example, he could pick you up with while standing 2 and then convert into a combo. So it's different. It's character specific in how they can pick you up, but each character of the Tekken cast can pick you up from there. God damn, my English really sucks today. Alright, while standing 1-3, Eddy is one of those characters that have a 13 frame while standing launch. So lows that you block, low pokes from other characters that normally you wouldn't be able to launch punish, you can launch punish with Eddy, which is nice. The combos are a bit finicky though, and can drop. It's one of Eddy's greatest weaknesses. His combos are very unreliable. What else was there? Also, if you block a low sweep, for example, or a snake edge, sometimes there's some kind of pushback to the move. So if you try to punish your opponent with this, right, the second hit is gonna whiff most of the time. So if you block a snake edge or hell sweep, go for while standing 2 or while standing 3 instead, because this one's gonna whiff. This one you're only using against those low pokes. Then we've got while standing 1-4, it's the safer version. On block completely safe at -9, and on hit +10, so you're basically free to do whatever you wish. While standing 2 is unsafe on block, but you won't just throw it out there. It's your health sweep or snake edge punish, where you know, alright, they're recovering pretty fast. While standing 3 is against those where you know, alright, they're so heavily staggered, they're at least minus 20 or worse. Then you use this one. While standing 4 is your generic while standing 4 basically. Full crouch 1+2, 1+2 is unsafe. I would not just throw it out there, because by some characters it is launch punishable. Kunimitsu, Brian and Lars, Law as well, are able to launch punish you for that, so watch it. Front Stinger is one of those moves we were talking about earlier in different situations. For example, Negativa, 4 and then 3+4. Oh, I might have mixed that up. Alright then. So basically, Front Stinger, you can cancel that into Negativa or an handstand. God damn it. This. So, if you go into a situation where you try to mind game your opponent, stay in crouch, and the mind game is between full crouch forward 4 into Negativa or full crouch 3+4 into Negativa or handstand, depending on what you want to do, if you want to bait your opponent, if you want to keep the pressure up, stuff like that, right? Yeah, that one we talked about. This one I haven't really found any good use for. I just don't use it. Also, I think it's unsafe. Yeah, -10. This one we talked about. It was the back-turned launcher, basically. Very rare to see that. Sidestep 2 is pretty strong, gives you +3, so you can continue pressure. On knockdown, uncounted, you get a combo from it as well. So that's nice. Because the move is quite slow though, and Eddy's sidestep sucks, probability is very high that you're gonna get interrupted by your opponent. So I would utilize sidestep 2 only when I know I've put my opponent into a defensive mindset, right? Alright, the hot plate special we already talked about, that we've got different options there. That we covered. Also you can just convert it into headstand without doing the launch immediately. But this one's pretty risky to do, because even on hit you're minus. Or you can... So, the hot plate, the first hit, you can cancel into Negativa, but you can cancel the first hit to go into handstand immediately as well. Thank you. You have one damn fine day as well, sir. So the immediate cancel would look something like this. I would only do the handstand cancel if you know you put your opponent into a defensive mindset though. Otherwise, you should rather go for hot plate special, headstand into immediate launch, which is sidestep 3 and on hit back 3+4. There it is. Alright, what else do we have? We have sidestep 4. Pretty good move, will leave you at plus. You can set up countered game with down for 2 in those kind of situations. You can go for forward 2-3 to work with your handstand stance. You can go for 1-3 and stuff like that. Ah, one thing I forgot to mention. If you move into a headstand stance and you want to bait your opponent even further with down forward 3 or 1-3 for example, and you think, alright, he has a move that has got a lot of range and he's gonna catch me, then you can cancel out of handstand stance with down back and go for wild standing punishment if you see them with. God damn it, those stances. I really have problems pronouncing them. You can go into handstand stance as well if you hold back, but it's pretty risky because you go into the stance on minus. However, you can go for crushing moves again, or the dancing part. You've got an extended low version as well. That's against opponents who don't like to low block a lot. It's on the riskier side though. As you can see, minus 45. But some people will hesitate to immediately punish, and even if they do, because of a pushback, some characters will have problems while standing punish you for it. So depending on the matchup, this is either one of your strongest or your weakest strings. Alright, sidestep for 3. Oh shit, I forgot to. Sidestep for 3 you're only gonna use to bust your opponent through a wall or through the balcony. Otherwise, I wouldn't really use it because it has a lot of time for startup. And on with the recovery is huge. You don't want to whiff that. You can go into you can go into the fucking stance, alright? And it's very minus there as well, so people will be able to launch punish you for it. Don't recommend doing that one. Ah, so now it works. Earlier when I was trying to explain that it didn't work, but now it works. Nice, Tekken, nice. So then we've got a sidestep 4, 3+4. If you hold down, you go into Negativo. If you hold back, you might have guessed it, you go into the other stance. Sidestep 3+4 is a pretty mean thing to do against your opponent. Because it's only minus 12, it has some kind of pushback, so it will be very difficult for your opponent to punish you for it. Also, on hit, it's a launch. You get a small combo from it. So pretty strong. And this right here is one of his longer strings. Oops. Completely safe if you do the full thing, but because of its linear, it's very linear, so people are able to easily sidewalk that, so you need to be careful using that. Sidestep 1+4 is pretty good. Hard knockdown, but on block. Launch punish. The thing is, I told you about Eddy's sidestep and sidewalking game being very bad, right? But because of his constant dancing around idle animation, it's very hard to see that move. If your opponent blocks that, he blocked it because he got a read or he guessed right at some point. But barely anyone will be able to block this one on reaction, because this one's very hard to see. Alright, this is the manual transition into stance. We've got one out of crouch as well. The one out of crouch we won't use ever, The other one we will use from time to time. If we're at distance 3, for example, or distance 2, we're going into stance and then immediately mix our opponent. This one you should never use, because you're gonna get floated out of that, and you're so, well, you're not doing any hits, so there's nothing really to hit your opponent with. It has a shit ton of startup. You're basically gonna get interrupted each and every single time you're trying that, so don't. Had stance 1, you get a guaranteed down forward 4 or a wild standing 3. His forward 3 plus 4 is too slow though, as you can see. So now we get to the interesting stuff, the mind games from the different stances. Utilizing more of a stance game than we did before, where we utilized more of a neutral game, right? So if you only do the 2, you can remain in crouch and mix him from there. That you do when you know your opponent expects the low follow-up. If he doesn't, you go for the low follow-up. It's plus on hit as well, so you can continue the pressure. It's only plus on hit though if both low hits connect. As you can see, the second likes to whiff. That, however, is because my opponent here is not actively blocking. He's set to eat the first hit and then try to block the follow-up attacks while standing, but normally you would have your opponent walking back a little. So you would either whiff the second completely, or because your opponent realigns, you would always be able to hit the second one. That is contextual, if it connects or not. Yeah, then we've got the hot plate special again. If you remember, we got that from sidestep 3, we got that from... where was it again? Actually need to remember. Ah, it was the delayed version. Down back 3, you wait a bit, so down back 3, neutral, and then 3. So we have that from his stance as well. And the same rules apply. We can either do the hit, or we immediately cancel out of it to go into stance again. Or we let the hit play out, go into stance and go for an immediate launch afterwards. So very strong. Then we've got the standard launch. You're gonna see a lot of Eddy players utilize. Those are the ones who love to play it very risky. This move right here with 29 frame startup is very slow though, so you're able to react to that with your eye. So this one I would only use against people who don't have the reaction to block that, don't have the knowledge, or where you've pressured them beforehand so hard that they can't do rational judgment anymore. Yeah, this one is going to be one of your main moves out of his stance, because it's 12 frames fast. If you manage to connect this on hit, you're free to go for other stuff. Opponents who try to interrupt you, you're gonna check with another helicopter, or go for a back 3. The back 3 uncounted gives you a guaranteed mini combo. So you're gonna end up in Negativa, On +7 on normal hit, and on counter hit it's a hard knockdown into a guaranteed negativer 3-4. I missed the timing there, but you get the idea. What else do we have? Also, you can convert the helicopter into the low launch. That one's a bit risky because you expect your opponent to either press something or move towards you. So this you only use against inexperienced players, otherwise you don't use it. 3+4 is his unbreakable grab from stance. The only thing your opponent can do is to either hit you out of stance for float combo, or he ducks the grab because the grabs are high. Then we've got the quick jab. This one we either use to cover more distance if we don't want to roll towards our opponent to stay in stance. It's one of the better ways to cancel out of stance as well, to keep the pressure up. On hit +8, and on block it's like a normal jab, so it's +1 on block. Yeah. This one we also utilize in some combos, for example with forward 4. The first thing I do is that move to keep our opponent in the air. And then go for 1, 2, 4, 3, forward 3+4, the usual stuff, right? Yeah, but as always, Eddy has problems connecting his full combos. It's just a flaw of the character. Yeah. This one we are mainly going to use for combos, or if we want to close larger gaps of distance. On block it's it's -12, so not completely safe. Did I mix that up with the other one? Yeah, that one's a bit safer with -10. Yeah, the purge, that's for the high crush, right? To go into launch. Then we've got the low kick to mix our opponent up. While we're doing that, we crush highs. We have a chance to evade mids. On counter hit, we get guaranteed follow-up. And on normal hit, we can mix out of negativa again. Either with pokes into another stance, strings into another stance, or an immediate launch. Immediate mid or immediate low launch. Then we've got the handstand tilt, it's the dancing around stuff. If you want to completely evade stuff, you go for this. And the follow-up is the low here. It has a shit ton of recovery though, so your opponent can launch punish you for it. It's basically the same situation as with this one here though, so some people will be able to launch punish that and some won't. Let's see, what else do we have? Then we've got the straight flop. We can go into negativa. So if it connects, we're +9. We can continue with our pressure. If it doesn't connect, on hit we're -2, and we're still free to do some stuff, like negativa 3 for example, but that's the extent of it, right? Also, on counted, hard knockdown into guaranteed negativa 3-4. Oops. Alright. Negativa 1-3. It's basically another version to go into hand. into his stance. I'm just giving up to pronounce it. As you can see, there's some distance between you and your opponent. You use that to bait your opponent into coming after you and then punish him for it. Negativa 1-4 is if you want to go back to his normal standing position. Negativa 2-3 is a countered launch. Very damaging as well. That should... Ah, I missed the last hit, that's why. Alright, let's go again. Oh my god. I'm starting to get confused myself. Yeah, 87 damage. That's pretty good. With Negativa 1-4, there are some additional follow-ups as well. So, for example, you can go for the different low strings we're talking at the beginning of our video with down back 3-4, stuff like that. Or that you can cancel those again into the hot plate special. That's still there, everything of that's still there, right? So you could do stuff like this, for example. Your opponent is gonna have a hard time to follow what you are doing there, because there's just so much you can do. Then we've got Negativa 2-4-3. It is minus 14, but because of the pushback, most of the cast will have problems to actually punish you for it. So it's relatively safe. Wall bounce as well. Then we've got Negativa 2-4. From there we can go into a stance if we hold back and continue mixing from there. Or we can go input an additional 3 if we expect our opponent to try and interrupt us. So he eats the last 2 hits. Then we've got Negativa 3-4. Basically follow up for the low. You can do that, it's safe, but most of the time it pays off more if you just do the low and check your opponent with wild standing 4 till your opponent understands that he can't interrupt you there, and then you go for full crouch mix up. Negativa 3+4 is risky to use. Your opponent can jab you out of there for float combo again. However, if the second part connects, you get a hard knockdown and guaranteed wild standing 3. You can pick up from there as well. And the damage is pretty great as well. That you basically use against defensive opponents who made the wrong guess, and you punish them for doing the wrong guess, for making the wrong guess, right? So this is your main launch, not your main, your low launch out of Negativa. Yeah. Was there something else? Ah, right. From Negativa, the low stinger, the mid tier, you can combo from that as well. Jesus Christ, there's so much stuff with Eddy. I'm so happy when I'm done with this. Also, you can cancel the flip to go into his stance immediately to mix your opponent from there. And if you do the entire flip and it connects and block, you're still safe. And if you convert into stance, you're at +1, so you can go for crushing shenanigans again. Or go for back 3 out of stance to fish for counter hit, while at the same time applying some pressure. So that's mainly gonna be used to continue combos. This one you will never use, because it's darn useless. Side roll to sit, it has some uses, yes, but most of the time you're just gonna get clipped and your ass beat for it. Then we've got the different 10 hits, which don't really interest us. Oh, I don't even remember this throw. One of your command grabs and another one of your command grabs. So the way I input that throw, I do it either after a successful punish, a sidestep 4, or a down 3-4, and then I buffer the throw. Basically, what I'm doing is, while I do another move, you could start with back and then do the full input. What I'm doing, however, is I start with forward, then I move back, and then I slide down, forward, and then press 1+2. It's easy on the hands that way. Crouch grab, nothing special about that. Alright, rage ref combo. I need to remember it. Oh boy. Should connect. There we go. There needs to be a slight delay there, otherwise you won't be able to get the combo. So you don't immediately do the 1, 2, 4, 3, but you wait for the animation of his forward jump to finish and then you input it. Then it should connect. Oh boy. There we go. Alright, now to stage with wall, and I'm gonna show some stuff there and then we're pretty much done.
Get ready for the next battle.
Okay, let's move to a wall. So, after a wall split, you've got different options. You either go for, let's switch rage off. If you want the pure damage, you go for back 2, 3, 3. If you want to continue with a mix-up, you go for down 2, 3. Which will leave you at +6. Should your opponent try to press anything, you check them with negative 4 to get another wall split, right? And from there you can either mix them up again or go for damage. Another option you have is to go for this, right? So that's another version for damage that looks like it will give you mix-up as well, but it won't. What else do we have? it went differently. I can't remember. Alright, then let's do something different. I need my opponent to move a bit closer to me, and... Alright. So, if you manage to land this uncounted, there is some sick stuff you can do. Right. Hop. Oops. That would be for pure damage. And that would be for mix-up. The other version I showed you... Oops. I'm too slow again. It takes me too much time to think. Also upward 3+4 you utilize to either wall split your opponent. It's a safe wall split, by the way. Or to break your opponent through the wall. What else did we have? This works as well, but it can whiff on occasion, so you need to watch out for that. Yeah, and that's Eddy as I know him. We managed to move through the complete move list, and I managed to explain everything to my abilities. I hope it wasn't too much for you guys, though it was too much for me, I guess, cause I got small brain. Alright, I'm gonna end that stream and I'm gonna see you guys another time. Till then.